My name is Anthony. I am 75 years old, and for a long time I thought I was doing things right. I walked now and then, ate whatever I fancied, and didn't worry too much about my heart. After all, I had no chest pains, no shortness of breath when climbing stairs, and my annual checkups were, let's say, acceptable. But what I didn't know was that, silently, my heart was beginning to send out warning signals. Signals so small, so easy to ignore, that they went unnoticed. Until one day, everything changed. I remember that morning perfectly. I woke up as always, but when I tried to get out of bed, I felt a dizziness that forced me to sit down abruptly. My pulse was faster than normal. I stayed still, taking deep breaths, hoping it would pass. I thought maybe it was my age or a bad night's sleep. But during breakfast, while reading the newspaper, I felt strange palpitations, as if my heart wanted to run a marathon without telling me. That very day, I decided to call my doctor, and thank God I did. They referred me to the cardiologist, and after several tests and some frank conversations, I received the advice that, honestly, I believe saved my life. What I learned that day completely changed my mornings, and the way I take care of my heart. It wasn't a miracle pill, nor surgery, nor an extreme diet. It was something much simpler, yet tremendously powerful. A small morning habit that anyone can do, even you, starting tomorrow. And that is why I'm here today, because I know many of you may be in the same situation I was, with a heart on the brink, but unaware. Today I want to tell you exactly what my cardiologist told me, and why this simple change can make the difference between a long, healthy life or an unexpected trip to the emergency room. But before I tell you everything, I want to get to know you a little better. Tell me in the comments, how old are you? And where are you watching this video from? I'd love to know, because even though we haven't met in person, today we're going to take care of the most important thing together, your heart. Everything started very subtly, small things that at the time I didn't pay attention to. I remember that a few months ago I began to feel more tired than usual. Before I could walk several blocks without problem, but suddenly I noticed I was out of breath after climbing a couple of steps. At first I thought it was just because of my age. I told myself, Anthony, you're no longer 50. Getting a bit winded is normal. But then the palpitations began. Some nights, while trying to sleep, I felt as though my heart suddenly sped up for no reason. A strong beat, then a weaker one, followed by a sort of empty sensation in my chest, as if my heart skipped a beat. I would lie in bed, waiting for it to pass, breathing deeply, and convinced it wasn't anything serious. I also noticed I was running out of energy during the day. Something as simple as sweeping the front porch or carrying a shopping bag left me breathless. Yet, as always, I made excuses. It must be the heat. Maybe I slept poorly. Surely it's just tiredness. But that morning, after the dizziness when trying to get out of bed, I knew I could no longer ignore it. My wife insisted, Anthony, you can't keep going on like this. Call the doctor. And so I did. 2 days later, I was sitting in the cardiologist's waiting room. I remember looking around and seeing other elderly people who seemed much more fragile than me. I kept telling myself, they'll probably say it's just stress or that I need vitamins. But deep down, something told me it wasn't that simple. When my turn came, the doctor greeted me with a cordial smile. He asked how I felt, ran through some routine questions, and then reviewed my previous tests. He also performed an electrocardiogram right then and there. They placed the electrodes, asked me to take a deep breath, and as the machine printed out the graphs of my beats, the doctor began to frown. When the test was over, he asked me to sit in front of his desk. He took a deep breath, looked at the papers, then looked me straight in the eyes. What he said next I still remember word for word. Anthony, you're playing with your health. In that moment, I felt a chill run through me. He explained that my beats weren't regular, that my blood pressure was higher than it should be, and that those episodes of fatigue and palpitations were clear signs my heart was struggling to stay afloat. He told me that, at my age, Ignoring these symptoms was like walking across a suspension bridge with its cables about to snap. He didn't know when it would give way, but if I continued as I was, it eventually would. Then came the part that surprised me most. He explained that before prescribing medication or ordering more tests, he wanted me to try a change in my daily routine. He spoke about how the first minutes of the morning are crucial for heart health, especially after 70. He said something that stuck with me. The way you start your day can be the difference between having a strong heart or ending up in an ambulance. From that point on, he explained what I needed to do each morning. Advice so simple, it at first seemed insignificant, but which I later discovered held immense power over my well-being. And that is exactly what I'm going to share with you in the next part of this video. Before I tell you the advice my cardiologist gave me, I think it's important that you understand one thing. Something he himself explained to me that day, clearly, and without beating around the bush. After 70, the heart no longer works the way it did when we were younger. Even if you feel fine, even if you have no pains, things are changing inside. And if you're not aware of those changes, you could get a nasty surprise. First, the arteries become more rigid. When we're born, our arteries are like rubber tubes, elastic, flexible, able to adapt to pressure changes without problem. But over the years, those arteries harden. It's like comparing a new hose to an old one. The old one no longer bends the same way. And that means the heart has to work harder to pump blood through those conduits. That arterial stiffness is one of the main causes of high blood pressure in older adults. You may have heard of high blood pressure. What many don't know is that it's not just a worrying number at a medical checkup. It's a constant burden on the heart. Every beat requires more effort, day after day, month after month, year after year, and that overload, sooner or later, takes its toll. The second big change is in heart rate. As we age, the heart loses a bit of its ability to adapt to sudden changes. For example, when we were young and raced up a flight of stairs, the heart would respond immediately, increasing its pace to send more oxygen to the muscles. But after 70, that response isn't as efficient. The heart may take longer to speed up, or worse, it may rush and become erratic. That brings us to the next point, the risk of arrhythmias. Arrhythmias are disturbances in the normal rhythm of the heart. While some are harmless, others can be very dangerous. My cardiologist explained that in older people, arrhythmias can go unnoticed for months, until one day they cause a fainting spell, a fall, or even a stroke. And the scariest part is that many of these changes don't produce obvious symptoms. Most older people who end up in the emergency room for a heart issue say the same thing. I felt fine, until everything suddenly changed. That's why daily prevention is so important. My doctor was very clear with me. Anthony, the best time to start taking care of your heart was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. It's not about living in fear. It's not about thinking all day about diseases. It's about making small adjustments that, together, can make a huge difference. As he told me, with small habits, you can give your heart the help it needs to keep working well, even after 70. And precisely for that reason, what I did each morning, from that day on, became one of the most important decisions of my life. After that direct talk with my cardiologist, I sat down to reflect on everything he had told me. I realized that for years, I had been making mistakes that unknowingly put my heart at risk. And the truth is, after a certain age, there are silent enemies that attack gradually, without giving us clear signals, until it's too late. Today, I want to tell you what those 5 enemies are that, according to my cardiologist, are the most dangerous for the heart in later life. The first is a sedentary lifestyle. As we age, it's natural to move less. Walks become shorter, we prefer to stay at home, and often we spend hours sitting in front of the television or on the couch. But what I didn't know is that sedentarism is like a slow poison for the heart. When you don't move, circulation slows down, the heart muscles weaken, and the risk of clots or coronary disease increases. Even something as simple as walking 10 or 15 minutes a day can make a difference. The second enemy is accumulated stress. Many believe that stress is a young person's problem, for those who work all day or have many responsibilities. But emotional stress in older age is more common than we think. Worry about health, family, finances, or even loneliness. All of that creates constant tension in the body, and the heart feels it. My cardiologist explained that chronic stress keeps the body's hormones on high alert, which elevates blood pressure and heart rate day after day. Even if we don't notice, that internal wear and tear weakens us from the inside out. The third enemy is a diet high in salt and fats. Here I must confess, for years I was a lover of processed meats, aged cheeses, fried potatoes, and richly flavored stews, all seasoned with plenty of salt. But after 70, the body no longer metabolizes saturated fats or excess sodium as it used to. All of that contributes to artery hardening, hypertension, and the buildup of bad cholesterol. You don't have to eliminate all culinary pleasures, but you do need to learn to moderate and choose better what you put on your plate. The fourth enemy is lack of restorative sleep. Sleeping well is not just about rest, it's a biological necessity for the heart. During deep sleep, the body regulates blood pressure, controls internal inflammation, and allows the heart to rest from the day's activity. But in later life, sleep becomes lighter. We wake more often at night, and in some cases suffer from insomnia. My cardiologist said something that made me think, if you spend years sleeping poorly, it's like forcing your heart to work a double shift without rest. And the fifth silent enemy, morning dehydration. This was the one that surprised me most. It turns out that during the night we lose more fluid than we imagine. Through breathing, slight sweating, even without realizing it. And when we wake up, our body is at its lowest hydration point. What does this have to do with the heart? Much more than we think. A dehydrated body makes the blood thicker, which forces the heart to work harder to pump it. This can increase the risk of clots and cardiovascular events right in the first hours of the day, which is when most heart attacks occur, as my doctor explained. It was just after talking about these 5 enemies that my cardiologist paused, looked at me seriously and said, "Anthony, if there is only one change you could make in your life, there is something I want you to start doing every morning, beginning tomorrow." And it was at that moment that he gave me the advice that, honestly, I believe saved my life. And that is what I'm going to share with you in the next part of this video. I remember that moment perfectly. My cardiologist looked me straight in the eye and said something I still repeat like a mantra. "Anthony, mornings are the time when you can protect or punish your heart. You choose." And it was then when he explained that after 70, the first 10 minutes of the morning are, literally, one of the most critical windows for heart health. Why? Because upon waking, the body undergoes several sudden changes. First, blood pressure. When we go from lying down to sitting up or standing, blood pressure has to adjust rapidly. But with age, that adjustment mechanism becomes slower and less efficient. That's why it's common for older adults to feel dizzy, have blurred vision, or even feel faint when jumping out of bed. What's happening is that the heart and blood vessels can't adapt as quickly as before. Second, heart rate. During the night, our heart beats more slowly, but upon waking, it needs to speed up to send enough blood throughout the body. This sudden change, if not managed well, can be a dangerous overload for an aged or already weakened heart. Third, blood flow. After hours of inactivity while sleeping, circulation tends to be slower. Blood is denser, more viscous, especially if we're dehydrated, as I mentioned earlier. This forces the heart to work harder to get the system going. My doctor explained it simply. Imagine that your car's engine has been off all night. If you rev it suddenly without warming it up, sooner or later, that engine will break down. The same happens with your heart. And it was then he gave me the routine that, according to him, every person over 70 should follow each morning. A routine that takes no more than 10 minutes, but can make a huge difference in long-term heart health. First, wake up slowly. Don't jump out of bed. The first thing is to open your eyes, take several deep breaths, and gently move your hands, feet, and legs, as if you were waking up your entire body, from head to toe. Second, hydrate. Before taking your first step out of bed, Drink a glass of water at room temperature. This helps thin the blood and improve circulation from the very start of the day. You don't need a liter, just a small to medium glass, enough to kickstart your circulatory system. Third, do gentle stretches in or beside the bed. Slowly move your neck from side to side, stretch your arms overhead, lift one knee at a time, rotate your ankles in circles. These small movements activate blood flow and prepare the body to stand without shocks. Fourth, stand up in 2 phases. First, sit on the edge of the bed. Stay there for about 30 seconds. Breathe deeply, and only then stand up slowly. This gives your blood pressure time to adapt, reducing the risk of dizziness or falls. And finally, take a few steps around the room, even if it's only for 2 or 3 minutes. The idea is to get the body moving gently but steadily, so the heart starts the day gradually, without abrupt effort. My cardiologist was very clear. Anthony, if you do this every morning, you will significantly reduce your risk of a cardiac event during those first hours of the day, which is when statistically most heart attacks occur in older adults. And let me tell you, since I've been doing it, I feel more awake, more stable, and above all, more at ease. When my cardiologist began explaining the first step of this morning routine, I realized something I had been doing wrong for years: getting up abruptly. All my life I had gotten into the habit of, as soon as I opened my eyes, sitting up quickly and standing immediately, especially when I had things to do or felt I'd overslept. But what I didn't know is that that simple gesture, that impulse to spring out of bed, was putting my heart at risk every morning. Let me explain why. When we sleep, our body is in a deep rest state. Blood pressure drops, heart rate slows, and circulation is more controlled. This is completely normal and necessary for rest. But the problem starts when, upon waking, we go from lying down to standing in a matter of seconds. This sudden change in position causes what doctors call orthostatic hypotension. What does that mean? It basically means a sudden drop in blood pressure when we move from a horizontal to a vertical position. And what are the consequences? First, the brain receives less blood for a few seconds. That's why we often feel dizzy, have blurred vision, or sense an emptiness in our head. Second, the heart has to work hard immediately to compensate for that drop in pressure. It beats faster, trying to send enough blood to the brain and muscles to prevent fainting. Third, this sudden effort can be very dangerous for those of us over 70. If there's any weakness in the cardiovascular system, that burst of effort can trigger anything from arrhythmias to a major cardiac event. My cardiologist was very clear. Anthony, every time you get up abruptly, you're asking your heart to sprint without a proper warm-up, and at your age, that sprint could be more than your body can handle. The solution, according to him, is as simple as it is effective. Wake up unhurriedly. This means that when you open your eyes, you stay lying down for another minute. Breathe deeply. Fill your lungs with air. Move your hands, your feet, your legs. Turn your neck gently from side to side. Then, sit on the edge of the bed, but don't stand up yet. While seated, let your feet rest on the floor. Rotate your ankles in circles, stretch your legs, and continue breathing deeply and mindfully. All of this helps give your circulatory system the time it needs to adapt. Blood begins to flow more quickly. Blood pressure rises gradually, and the heart can handle the change in posture without a sudden overload. And here's a small practical tip that works wonders for me. While sitting on the edge of the bed, take a moment to give thanks for the new day. Breathe deeply and think of one thing that brings you joy. It could be a fond memory, a loved one, or simply the pleasure of being alive. This small moment of gratitude also helps reduce stress and begins to prepare your mind for a calm day. Since I started doing this, I no longer experience the morning dizziness that used to accompany me almost every day. I get up more steadily, in better spirits, and above all, knowing I'm caring for my heart from the very first minute. After learning to get up without rushing, My cardiologist gave me another tip that genuinely surprised me by its simplicity, yet also by its power. Hydrate immediately upon waking. And here I want to share a little story. The story of Emmanuel, a lifelong friend who unfortunately learned this lesson the hard way. Emmanuel and I used to walk together in the mornings. He was always active, one of those people with seemingly boundless energy, even after 75. But there was one thing that always struck me. He never drank water first thing in the morning. He would say, "Anthony, I only have coffee. Water makes me feel nauseous at dawn." I didn't think much of it. Until one day, nearly a year ago, Emmanuel didn't show up for our walk. His wife called me early. "Anthony, Emmanuel is in the hospital. He gave his heart a scare right after getting up." Do you know what happened? Exactly what my cardiologist had explained to me days earlier. When we sleep, during those 6, 7, or 8 hours of rest, our body loses a significant amount of fluid. We sweat, we breathe, and even if we don't notice, we become gradually dehydrated. Blood gets a bit thicker, circulation slows. Now, imagine waking up, dehydrated, and asking your heart to pump that denser blood at full speed so you can stand, walk, or simply start your day. That extra effort in thicker blood is a dangerous combination. In fact, studies show that the risk of having a heart attack or stroke is much higher in the first hours of the morning, precisely for this reason: overnight dehydration. My cardiologist put it very clearly. "Anthony, your heart needs water to function well. Think of your blood as a river, and water as the flow that keeps it moving. If the river dries up, the journey becomes harder, and in the worst case, it clogs." Since that day, every morning, as soon as I sit up, the first thing I do is drink a large glass of water. No coffee, no tea, no juice. Plain, natural water. The ideal amount, according to the doctor, is between 200 and 300 milliliters. Enough to signal the body it's time to wake up, activate metabolism, and kickstart circulation. And if you're wondering, "Anthony, cold water or warm?" The general recommendation is water at room temperature or slightly warm. This avoids extra effort warming it up, and it's absorbed more quickly. Since incorporating this habit, I can tell you that my morning energy has improved greatly, my digestion too, and most importantly, I feel my heart no longer has to struggle as much in those first hours of the day. Oh, and by the way, Emmanuel learned the lesson too. After his scare, his cardiologist gave him the same recommendation. Nowadays, whenever we meet, he jokingly tells me, "Anthony, now my breakfast starts with water, and then coffee. But water comes first, I promise." So, now you know. The second step of this morning heart care routine after 70 is simple but fundamental. Hydrate as soon as you wake. Give your body and your heart the liquid fuel they need to start the day right. After adding hydration to my morning routine, my cardiologist gave me the third key step, one that honestly, I never imagined would have such an impact on my cardiovascular health: conscious breathing. Yes, breathing. Something we do automatically from the day we're born, but which, as we age, and especially with life's accumulated stress, we stop doing correctly. I remember perfectly when the doctor said, "Anthony, before thinking about walking or breakfast, I want you each morning to dedicate at least 2 minutes to breathing, but to really breathe." I looked at him puzzled. I said, "Doctor, but don't I breathe all the time?" And then he explained something that made me reflect deeply. Yes, you breathe, but you don't oxygenate your body well. Most older adults breathe shallowly, quickly, without fully filling their lungs, and that, over time, disrupts your nervous system, raises your blood pressure, and overloads the heart. That's when he taught me a simple but powerful technique: 4-count breathing, and I want to teach it to you today, in case it helps you too. Here's how it goes. First, inhale deeply through your nose, counting silently to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second, hold the air in your lungs, also for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Third, exhale slowly through your mouth, again counting to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth, before inhaling again, remain empty-lunged for another 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. That completes one cycle. The ideal is to repeat it at least 4 or 5 times. The entire process takes only 2 minutes. But believe me, those 2 minutes can completely transform how your day begins. But why is this so important for the heart? First, because this deep breathing activates what doctors call the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for relaxing your body, lowering heart rate, and reducing blood pressure. Second, because it improves blood oxygenation. When we breathe shallowly, oxygen barely reaches the deeper parts of our lungs. But with this technique, fresh air and oxygen reach every corner of our body, including, of course, the most important muscle of all, the heart. Third, because it helps reduce cortisol, the infamous stress hormone. And as you probably know, chronic stress is one of the worst enemies of the heart, especially after 70. In fact, my cardiologist told me a phrase I will never forget. Anthony, a stressed heart is a heart in danger. Since I began this practice, my mornings are different. I feel calmer, less agitated, and above all, more attuned to my body. And between you and me, this little breathing ritual has also unexpectedly improved my mood. I wake up in a better frame of mind, with more mental clarity, and more eagerness to enjoy the day. So, if you want to give your heart a true gift each morning, try this. As soon as you wake, sit on the bed, take your glass of water, and dedicate 2 minutes to conscious breathing. You'll see that not only will your heart thank you, but also your mind, your energy, and even your mood. After breathing deeply and feeling my body more awake, my cardiologist gave me the next step. He said, "Anthony, now that you've oxygenated your body, it's time to get that machinery inside you moving." And no, he wasn't referring to running or doing complicated exercises. What he recommended was something much simpler, yet just as powerful: gentle, progressive movement to activate circulation. You see, after several hours of sleep, our body is in deep rest. Blood flows more slowly, muscles are stiff, joints, especially in the legs, lose mobility. If at that moment, right upon waking, you jump up and start walking, you risk dizziness, falls, or even compromising blood flow to the heart and brain. That's why my cardiologist showed me a series of small movements I do every day, even before putting a foot on the floor. I'll share them with you, in case you want to include them in your morning routine. First, while still in bed, rotate your ankles slowly. Make circles both ways, 10 times each direction. This boosts circulation in your legs and awakens the muscles in your feet. Second, flex and extend your toes, several times. It may seem trivial, but it activates the soles of your feet, which is key for balance. Third, next, move your knees, bend them slightly, straighten them, and make some gentle bicycle pedal motions while lying down. Fourth, move your arms, roll your shoulders in circles, stretch your elbows, open and close your hands several times. This improves circulation in your upper body. Finally, sit on the edge of the bed, let your legs dangle, and take a couple of deep breaths before standing. My cardiologist explained that these movements have a clear goal: to gradually activate the circulatory system and prepare the heart for the positional change from lying down to standing. And you know what's best? This little ritual, which takes me no more than 3 minutes, has almost entirely eliminated my morning dizziness. In fact, let me tell you about Mr. Raphael, a friend from the senior center I visit some afternoons. Mr. Raphael, who is 79, used to fall frequently in the mornings. At first, everyone thought it was a balance or vision issue, but after a medical consultation, they discovered it was because he got up abruptly, without giving his body time to adjust. When I told him about these movements, he started doing them every morning, and in just 2 weeks, he confessed he felt much more stable, more confident walking, and his falls had disappeared. So, if you've ever felt dizzy upon getting up, or your legs feel stiff in the mornings, give this routine a chance. Remember, moving gently upon waking not only protects your bones and joints, but also your heart, by helping blood flow better and preventing abrupt blood pressure changes. And now, get ready, because the next step of this routine involves a food we all have at home, but which I, for years, completely overlooked. Let's talk about the importance of nutrition in those first minutes of the day. After moving, hydrating, breathing consciously, came one of the key moments in my new morning routine, the cardioprotective breakfast. I remember my cardiologist's exact words that day. "Anthony, what you eat in the first hour after waking can be your best medicine or your worst poison." And he was absolutely right. Until then, my typical breakfast was a large cup of coffee, white bread with butter, and sometimes a slice of processed meat, all rushed, without thinking. I did it out of habit, unaware of how much I was damaging my heart each morning. That was when my doctor gave me a list of foods that, according to him, are like a shield for the heart, especially after 70. First, potassium-rich fruits. Potassium is essential for blood pressure balance. It helps counteract excess sodium in the body and keeps heart rhythm stable. My cardiologist recommended starting the day with a banana, a handful of strawberries, or a slice of melon. He also mentioned kiwis, small but packed with potassium and antioxidants. Second, oats. I never would have imagined that a bowl of oats could do so much for my health. Oats contain soluble fiber, which helps lower bad cholesterol in the blood, the kind that builds up in arteries and raises heart attack risk. Plus, it keeps me full all morning, preventing unhealthy snacking. Now, every morning, I prepare a small portion of oats, sometimes with plant-based milk, sometimes with water, and I add fresh fruit and a dash of cinnamon. Third, nuts, especially walnuts. They are a natural source of healthy fats, known as omega-3, which protect the heart and reduce inflammation. Just a small handful a day, about 5 or 6 walnuts, is enough to reap their benefits. And if I don't have walnuts, almonds or chia seeds are also excellent options. Fourth, green tea or hibiscus infusion. Before, my breakfast was incomplete without strong coffee, but after my cardiologist's recommendation, I learned balance. Green tea and hibiscus infusion are gentle on the stomach and help lower blood pressure and protect blood vessels. Hibiscus infusion in particular has a vasodilating effect, which improves circulation. Now, instead of coffee, I start the day with a hot cup of green tea or hibiscus, and I feel much lighter, less jittery. And what did he ask me to avoid at all costs in the morning? First, excess caffeine. A small cup of coffee may be fine for some, but 2 or 3 cups, on an empty stomach, raise blood pressure and heart rate unnecessarily. Second, saturated fats. My cardiologist was very clear. Forget about processed meats, butters, and fried foods in the morning. These foods raise cholesterol and overload the heart when it's most vulnerable. He also warned me about refined sugars. Those sugar-loaded breakfast cereals, pastries, or commercial bread are a trap for cardiovascular health. Since I made these changes, I've noticed the difference. I have more energy, my digestion is better, and most importantly, my blood pressure has remained much more stable. So if you also want to care for your heart, start by reviewing your breakfast, because what you put on your plate each morning can be the first step to a much healthier day and life. But do you know what completes this cardiac protection routine? The step that cost me the most, but has brought me the greatest benefits. After waking calmly, hydrating, breathing deeply, moving my body, and having a cardioprotective breakfast. There was one last step my cardiologist told me never to forget. A moment of gratitude. Yes, I know. It may sound simple, even overly basic, but I assure you this small habit has had a profound impact on my heart and on my overall well-being. My doctor explained it to me in a way I will never forget. He said, "Anthony, your state of mind upon waking can make the difference between a day with a calm heart or a day filled with invisible stress that harms it from within." And he was right. Before this habit, I used to open my eyes, and the first thing I did was worry. I thought about bills, medical appointments, the news, or simply all the things that bothered me. Unknowingly, I started the day with a tense body, rigid shoulders, an accelerated heart, and a constant sense of overwhelm. But everything changed when my cardiologist explained the direct link between negative emotions and heart health. When you wake up stressed, with negative thoughts, or with worries, your body releases hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones raise blood pressure, increase heart rate, and trigger internal inflammation. If that happens occasionally, it's no big deal. But if you start every single day that way, day after day, year after year, your heart suffers greatly. That was when he recommended a simple yet powerful exercise, the 1-minute gratitude journal. What does it involve? Very simple. Each morning, right after drinking my glass of water, and before breakfast, I sit for a moment, close my eyes, and think of 3 things I'm grateful for that day. They don't have to be big or complicated. Sometimes I'm grateful for simply waking up one more morning. Other times I'm grateful to be able to move my legs, hear the birds singing, or have my family nearby. If I want, I write it in a small notebook on my bedside table. It only takes a minute, but I assure you it completely changes how you start the day. Over time, this small habit lowered my blood pressure, my anxiety levels dropped, and I felt emotionally stronger to face the day's challenges. Why does it work? Because when you start the day focusing on the positive, your body releases serotonin and other substances that balance the nervous system, reduce inflammation, and protect the heart from stress. Also, you train your mind to seek reasons to feel good, instead of reasons to worry. I invite you to try it tomorrow. When you open your eyes, before checking your phone, before thinking about your tasks, take 1 minute to ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? Do it for a week and see how you feel. Because caring for your heart isn't just about pills and exercises. It's also about how you think, how you feel, and how you choose to begin each day. And so, we arrive at the end of this journey, a voyage that began just minutes ago, but which honestly can make all the difference for the rest of your life. Today I've told you what my cardiologist taught me, what I've put into practice, and what has allowed me to regain the peace of mind that I'm doing something good for my heart every morning. Let's do a quick recap, because I want you to have each of these steps crystal clear, so you remember them tomorrow, when you wake. First, wake up without rushing. No leaping out of bed, no abrupt movements. Give your body and heart the time they need to transition from rest to activity. Second, hydrate immediately. A large glass of water, neither cold nor hot, just room temperature, to give your blood the fluidity it needs and reduce the risk of cardiovascular incidents. Third, practice conscious breathing. Just a couple of minutes of deep 4-count breaths to calm the nervous system, oxygenate thoroughly, and start the day with less stress. Fourth, move your body gently. No need for an intense workout, just some leg and arm movements, a bit of torso rotation to activate circulation and prevent falls or dizziness. Fifth, choose a heart-protective breakfast. Oats, potassium-rich fruits, a handful of nuts, or a cardioprotective infusion. It all adds up. Sixth, nourish your mind too, with a positive thought or a moment of gratitude, so your heart is not only physically healthy, but emotionally strong. You might think this is a lot to incorporate, but let me tell you what my cardiologist repeated several times. Anthony, they are small habits, but together, they have the power to save lives. And believe me, he was right. Today, my blood pressure is more stable. I sleep better. I have more energy. And above all, I feel that every morning I'm doing something to keep me here, enjoying life. One more day. If you're over 70, if you've ever felt fatigue, palpitations, or simply want to care for your health before it's too late, today is the best day to start. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Don't wait for a scare to force you to change. Do it by your own choice. Do it for yourself. Do it for those who love you. And do it because your heart, that engine that has accompanied you since day one, will thank you tomorrow and every day after. And before I say goodbye, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which of these steps do you already do? And which one will you start tomorrow? I'll love to read your answers, know where you're watching from, and how old you are. Because this community is exactly for that, to support each other, learn, and care together for what matters most, our health and our lives. Thank you for staying with me until the end. And remember, subscribe, hit like, and share this video with a friend or relative who also needs to hear this today. See you in the next video.